Hi, this is Debra Danielsen. Welcome to episode 2 of our adventure in space. Is it possible to find answers to whether UAPs exist? Why are they happening? And who's behind it or what's behind it? Is it possible that quantum warp drive is enabling us, that we are the UAPs showing up, that we are standing right up here on the past, present, and future of time. And because we did develop quantum warp drive at some point in humanity, that we are now able to be present at all 3 time phases, past, present, and future. And the ships that we actually see, the UAPs that we find in the atmosphere or that are diving down into the ocean in Italy and coming back up, is that really us in the future changing the past because on the very precipice of time itself? Angel investors are a special people vital to moving the world forward with technologies, creativity, and vision. Angel investors are change agents that make the world faster, safer, and reliable, with technology advancements to deliver to the market the best possible way, and through their vision to invest in the greater good of mankind for a profit. What type of possible angel investor is best suited for the development and marketing of the quantum warp drive engine project that Dave Paris and Kyle Finley have shared with us? We will explore this in today's episode. They've dedicated their engineering, design, and lab testing resources over the past few decades. And then we hear all of this stuff about Jeff Bezos and the race with Elon Musk to go into suborbital spaceflight. And we've had our hero, Captain Kirk, actually go up in one of those ships. So are these possible angel investors worthy of spending a few minutes of time with Dave Paris and Kyle Finley to hear what their operations are, what their discoveries are, and how their warp drive engine works? They have what it takes. You have to tell me whether Dave Paris, Kyle Finley deserve time in a room with an Elon Musk, Bronson, a Jeff Bezos, or someone in that realm of who can make it happen, bring it to market, make it a reality, who that person would be. Who should sit in the room? Do they deserve time in that room? Or do you think the whole thing is a pipe dream? Possible candidates would be people with a deep understanding of physics, engineering, and quantum mechanics. Of course, these type of angel investors would be willing to take on high risk with the potential for high rewards. Let's take Peter Thiel. Thiel is a billionaire investor and entrepreneur who is known for early stage investment in companies with high potential. Co-founder of PayPal and Planetar Technologies. Jeff Bezos is the founder and CEO of Amazon, also invests in space exploration and other cutting-edge technologies heavily. Richard Branson. Branson is the co-founder of the Virgin Group, a conglomerate that includes Virgin Atlantic Airways, Virgin Galactic, and Virgin Orbit. He is a passionate advocate for space exploration as well as other innovative technologies. And let's not forget about Elon Musk. Musk is the CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink. Known as one of the most innovative and successful entrepreneurs in the world, He has demonstrated a willingness to take on high-risk investments with the potential for high upside potential returns. Quantum warp drive innovators are still in the very early stages of development, with the possibility they may never realize the use of the technology in our day-to-day lives. However, if they do succeed, one thing we know for absolutely certain, quantum warp drive would revolutionize travel and exploration for all of humanity. Wouldn't you like to enjoy space travel like Captain Kirk and the crew of the USS Enterprise with artificial gravity, being able to tell a story like Scotty where he can kick it into warp drive while traveling to the next exotic planetary destination just to brag to your friends? And then something like you could spit out like, beam me up or beam me down, Scotty. It's time to party. You be the judge. Does Dave Paris and Kyle Finley's invention have the muster to sit in the room with these angel investors? You decide.
This is a customized 48-volt power supply. All of our engines run on DC power. The 48 volts, there's 4 12-volt batteries. They're hooked up in series, and then at the output comes over here, and then they power these linears that are sitting right underneath the Faraday cage. And the linears are designed, they're custom designed. What they do is they will take up to 3 watts of input and convert it out to over 1,400 watts of power. And to boost our power rating, what we do is in the center there we have a combiner, and each one of the linear outputs goes to the combiner, and this is where we can get up to about 2,600 watts of power. And then that is then available to go through our tuner, our outputs power meter, the RF energy, and then this goes into our Faraday cage, and then we attach it to, we have over 20 different models of engines that we've designed over the last 12 years, and then we energize them in here. We use the Faraday cage just as a protection to keep emanations from getting out and regulate everything here.
So this is your quantum warp drive machine.
Well, the engines that are sitting over on the workbenches are.
Right.
But this is the Faraday cage where we do all the testing.
Right. But this is where it happens,
Yeah.
right here.
Oh, yeah.
And Kyle has.
Sure. This is what we refer to as Model 19.
Uh-huh.
And we think that this is one of our nicest engines that we've designed. It's a solid state engine. These are the fractal arrays that take the RF energy. It emanates out this way. The two near fields cross, and then a side lobe is developed, and it goes down into the engine here, which compresses the fabric of space.
And this is where you can make a bubble.
That is correct. And when we show you some of the signature graphics, we have a signature warp graphic that we took from inside here. We had 55 points underneath the engine, and we did it at 7 different levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 7 inches away, front and back. And so the ones that we show on our website are at the 4-inch level here, and it was all represented just by 10 watts of energy.
Which is incredible, because if you read all this theoretical stuff about quantum warp drive, it says, you know, for every action there's an equal opposite reaction, right? That you have to have tremendous negative power to be able to propel forward.
It's not true.
Not true.
It is absolutely not true. We have demonstrated and shown. We have redshift into the engine. In other words, redshift in frequencies, which you would expect to see. We can actually influence objects through solid objects with the engine. And we've done a modified Cavendish experiment where there's a glass box with wood top and bottom, and we have a torsion bar of homogeneous masses on either end, and up to 140 centimeters away, the engine will actually pull one side of the torsion bar and you set up against it, and that's through a solid object.
That's incredible.
So the proof of what we've been able to demonstrate is all those factors of showing the compression of the fabric of space, altering gravity with this engine. Now, at 10 watts of power, we can alter gravity at 0.74 meters per second squared.
That's pretty significant.
That will allow you to grow plants in space. At 20 watts, an astronaut's feet can adhere to the floorboards of a spacecraft at 20 watts. And so what we proposed to NASA and a bunch of other people was that we have our smaller variants of engines underneath the floorboards of spacecraft or International Space Station, and would provide artificial gravity. We've also done the biologic testing, and particularly at those low power levels, there's absolutely no influence to human biology at all.
Wow, so it'd be a real human health good thing to have.
You don't have to do all the exercising and have atrophy of your limbs.
Recovery problems.
So you can simulate pretty much near gravity that we experience here on Earth in space or even on the moon.
That's so significant.
It is.
Now, I'm really surprised. Well, part of me is, but part of me isn't. Because we all know in the field of science and government and NASA, you know, there's an ego thing, right?
Not invented here.
Correct.
And you're standing in a converted garage where most of your Fortune 500 companies started. And
billion-dollar companies have started in the garage.
And the kind of technology that we're talking here of being able to warp the fabric of space. Our current prototype that we've been using can actually will generate 3.5 pounds of lift on the engine. And that means that if you take it into space on a 4,000 pound spacecraft, you could get to Pluto in 126 days. With 3.5 pounds of pull, and this is a pulling engine. The fabric of space compresses, it goes in this direction, and then gradually dissipates behind it. This is not an Alcubierre drive, where compression matches expansion in the back. That does not occur. So our experience has shown, because we have front and back signatures of the warp, gradually expands into the back, compresses into the front. And so it can artificially alter gravity. In addition, you can work warp bubbles. You can make a larger warp bubble from several warp bubbles.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so on the exterior of the spacecraft, you put these into pods. You can now pull the spacecraft, but within the spacecraft, you can also exert artificial gravity for the occupants of the craft.
How nice. And those don't look like they weigh very much. So
this is only 1.15 pounds.
So the payload on that would be significantly light enough to cost justify all of the benefits.
Oh, well, you don't have to have fuel.
Right.
There's no propellant here. So if you
what happens if it gets damaged and I'm in space? So I would have to have spare parts?
There's no moving parts in this engine. There's nothing to wear out.
But what if one of these gets like blown off the side or something?
Well, actually, you can alter your fields with the remaining engines to have total actual control of the spacecraft.
Wow, that's cool. That's Star Trek all over the place.
Well, it doesn't work like what Star Trek initiated as far as the science fiction goes, but the reality of how the engine works, we've actually demonstrated an engine that one of the parts in the engine, the early testing, heated up, and it was a bad joint in the on the motor. Anyway, the bottom line was the engine kept working despite the fact that one part of it had a bad connection joint. And so it's reminiscent of World War II and the R2800 Pratt & Whitney engines. When hit with 20 millimeter cannon shells, the pistons still, the engine still operated and still brought the pilots home.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, and you would see, they would actually see the engine running and pistons coming in and out of the motor, and it would still run.
And the guys in the cockpit going, "Don't quit on me now."
Don't quit on me now. Well, it's kind of similar in concept of, despite the fact that that had a problem in the early days of testing, which has since been corrected, but it demonstrated the fact that the engine integrity still will do what it's supposed to do and not be defeated as far as its operational characteristics.
So tell me something. Why wouldn't Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, why wouldn't they just be like over here knocking on your door saying, "Hey, Dave, you gotta come to my lab, you gotta work with my people. What do you think is getting in your way?"
Well, the fact that we've sent him information, and a lot of other people. We've put in NASA proposals, we've sent information to DARPA. DARPA actually had a specification currently for an electric propulsion unit.
Now, what is DARPA?
That's the defense. It's an acronym.
Right.
It's the Defense Research Program, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And so they'll take ideas from the public and they'll sponsor you if they think it's something that they're interested in. But they actually specified an electric propulsion engine of 20 to 30 millinewtons. We actually generate 15 newtons, which is 15 million times more powerful than what they specified.
And they wouldn't come to the table?
We haven't even heard word one from them.
I would think that they'd be jumping off the table, especially given the fact that right now there's a hardcore press on the Senate saying, "Hey, we want more information about UAPs. We want to know what's going on." And then they've got all this other stuff going on saying, "Well, you got to release documents. You got to tell the public the truth." But yet, on the other hand, we don't see much movement going on, especially like what you're talking about. Well, you could actually prove through what you're doing right here
of how UFOs work.
Exactly.
Yes, we also have data that shows that these engines will cool the ambient air temperature around the motor.
Wow.
Exactly what they picked up on their F-18s, where the cooling areas on the outside of the vehicles. This does the same thing.
Isn't that amazing?
So
you would think that alone would be enough to say, "Hey, maybe I better check out what Dave's got there."
Could be it. Could be.
Do you think that people
most
profoundly don't even think that people in Nebraska or Iowa do anything but raise corn, hogs, and cattle? Wow. So we're at the cradle of innovation here.
Yeah.
Taking society forward faster than jet propulsion, and we can't get anybody to pick up the phone on the other end.
Most people don't believe that this is possible.
I know.
And despite the fact that we have our videos and they're right out of this lab, and we have multi-cameras on what we're doing, everything is documented, we show it and we display it publicly, and we have a website that has all of our documents, ones that have been published, other ones that we have I've written about how do you use these things and all that.
So what would you think if we set aside a time to try to call Jeff Bezos' team or we try to call Elon Musk's team, or anybody that you think would have a business interest in this. Because I picked those two guys because what are they doing right now? They're talking about their space travel, right? And
Yeah.
it's really suborbital, right?
Right.
It's so it's not as fancy as they think it is, but you can sure generate money if people want to say, "Hey, I've been in space."
That's correct. Initially is to put these on probe spacecraft, station keeping motors on board satellites, because there's no fuel that you have to have. Ion drive engines require xenon fuel. Now they have different variants of those things, but those things run like $40 million
Yeah.
a copy, and their life cycles, they don't last that
That's
long.
why the telecom bills keep shooting up. We need more capacity, but you know, it costs a lot of money to keep a satellite in the air
That's correct.
and to orbit those things and to fuel. Yeah, and the technology, right?
And like I said, this can be pointed in any direction that you want. So if you wanted to up orbit a satellite, you could use an engine like this. Now we call them engines. I don't know.
Isn't that a nice looking engine? It almost reminds me of a, you know, like a nice Mercedes-Benz AMG engine.
Well, we use fractal technology in our designs here. These represent essentially the frequencies of a thunderstorm. These are tripole fields. Inside of a thunderstorm, you have plus, minus, minus, plus, the freezing level being minus. And these are the structures within the thunderstorms. And when you cross those, based on pilot reports that we've had since World War II all the way to present day, pilots that flew into these, quote, sucker holes in various parts of the world ended up hundreds of miles away from their current position in a matter of a second.
Right.
And couldn't explain why and how did that happen. Well, it took me a variety of years to figure it out. Being a meteorologist, I've worked all aspects of weather, from weather forecasting, radar, upper air, everything that you could imagine, from being on the taking observations to forecast and writing numerical weather models. All of that, plus my teaching of physics and astronomy, gave me the knowledge and the multidisciplinary background to figure out what happened. And the crossover points in the thunderstorms, we emulated and brought this into the lab to see if these pilots were lying, then the lab would tell us right off the bat.
And why is it that they always think that there's something defective with the pilot? What is it
It's a
that
natural human to never believe anything you hear the first time,
I
nor the
see.
second, nor the third.
but pilots are pretty smart people.
Well, of course they are. They're very
Yeah.
disciplined people. You have to be in order to know how to fly an airplane.
And look at how we put our lives on the line and we trust them with our lives.
Exactly.
So
Or
why
you-
would we think that they're crazy if they had an encounter with a flying
That's right.
saucer?
They're flying 200 plus souls on their aircraft.
Correct.
And if you don't trust them and what they observe, they have to observe to keep their airplane from colliding with something
And they
else.
have to know how to respond in a nanosecond, right?
They got to be prepared.
Yeah,
So when pilots tell you that they've seen something, they may not know what it was,
right.
but they can certainly tell you this is what happened.
And this is what I did.
Exactly.
And this is then what occurred after that. Yeah. So you
Exactly.
have a living, breathing witness
exactly.
that people try to say is crazy.
Now, on all these programs that you'll see, I don't care who puts them on, the various network channels, and when they talk about these people, they always say, well, scientists discount
Yeah.
what they say.
Right.
They always negate everything
Right.
that they talk about. Well, being a pilot myself, I didn't negate anything that they said. If there's some truth to this, then I should be able to
Recreate
reverse
it.
engineer this
Yeah.
in the situation. And so that's what I did. And I took the situations that they were encountering, I did a bunch of calculations, and then I figured out, based on this tripole design, to bring it into the laboratory, of which we use very large antennas, and we stuck a laser beam between the two.
And
we
what kind of laser did you use?
Well, actually, it was a pen laser, believe it or not.
Oh, really? My goodness.
But it was a laser nonetheless.
Yeah, and it's powerful.
Yeah, exactly.